Welcome to Toddcast, your weekly leadership nudge. My name is Todd Long, your host. Thank you again for listening this week and every week. If you so happen to be a faithful follower and listener, I really appreciate that. And also appreciate anytime you share these podcasts with other people if you find value in them. And I also appreciate you giving me feedback and the podcasts you enjoy and find interesting, and then feedback if you find something not so interesting. I appreciate that as well. Last week, I was working on my podcast around investing our time. I was downstairs in my office. My wife came down with our 3-year-old granddaughter. She'd spent the night, and my wife came down and said, "Hey, I've got an urgent thing I need to take care of. Would you mind watching Elia for about 30 minutes?" Well, it interrupted the work that I was doing, so I was pausing myself and thinking, can I do this? Does this fit into my time frame? I've got work to get done. I've got a busy day. And I paused for a second, took a deep breath. I realized she could work in my office, Elia could play in my office while I worked for a little bit, and I could watch her. So I decided, yes, have her come down here, hang out in my office, let her play, and I'll do my work. About 10 minutes into this time, Elia comes over to me. She said, "Papa, will you read a book to me?" I stopped immediately. All the work that I was doing, focused on creating my podcast around investing our time well, stopped, because I knew at that moment that was the most important investment I could make. So I sat down with Elia and read her some books. We had a great time for the next 15 to 20 minutes just reading books together until Rebecca, my wife, came back to get her. Over the past several weeks, I've been talking about time to lead and using time and investing time and using our time really, really well. Last week, I talked about investing our time and thinking about that. What we put into the activities we do, we get some result out of that, and being thoughtful and intentional about that. The week before that, I looked on creating a philosophy of time. What is your philosophy for time? And in the first week, I focused on this meaning matrix. If you haven't listened to those 3 episodes, go back and listen to them. They set a foundation for today's episode, because today's episode is focused on living it. Living an intentional blueprint that you create for yourself. Let's make this happen. Welcome to the Toddcast, your weekly leadership nudge. Welcome to the Toddcast, great ideas you'll love. We've lived in our house for 13 years. We bought it as a for sale by owner home from a lovely couple, Bill and Sandy, and I loved the for sale by owner process. We could meet with the family, we could hear their story, we could understand who they are, and we found out that they had built our house, this house, which was their house, and they had built it, raised their family for about 20 years before they sold it to us. As I was going through the house after we started moving in, I was looking on some basement storage shelves, and I found the blueprints to the house. I could roll it out, and there were several pages that showed the very detailed plan of the construction of this house. When you think about a blueprint, that is a map. It's a framework. It is the very specific details to construct a home. We think about blueprints for constructing homes or buildings or sheds or whatever you're going to build. There's a blueprint. It's a document. It gives you the details to build that structure. I want you to apply that same principle to your life so you can live out intentionally the areas of your life that you want to invest in and be really clear and specific about that. So I'm going to walk through a very clear plan so you can put this into practical application, so you can invest your time well in the things that are most important. There are 5 steps I'm going to walk through with you, and I want you to take note of these 5 steps either mentally or write them down so you know clearly the 5 steps to take and use your time really well so you invest it in the things you find most important. So number 1, identify your primary areas of investment for your time. Talked about that last week in last week's episode. So go back and identify what are those primary areas that you want to invest your time in. Stephen Covey talks about this in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He calls it the big rocks. The big rocks. These are some of the categories we talked about last week: health, relationships, service, work, rest, hobbies, these things that are really important in our lives, to identify what are those big, most important areas in our lives that you want to invest in, that you can see the results of that investment. That's number 1. Number 2 is you have to set goals for each of those areas. I use a STOMP. I call it the STOMP framework: specific, time-bound, owned, measurable, positive. setting specific goals within each of those primary areas that you want to invest your time in. And I would keep it simple when you set those goals and identify 2, maybe 3 maximum goals for each of these areas. Goals that you really believe in and are committed to completing. So write them out. So I will fill in the blank, do XYZ by XYZ time, from this time to that time. Make those goals clear and specific, time-bound, owned, and positive. That's step number 2, set the goals. Step number 3, look at those goals that you've set within each of those categories, again, of your primary areas of focus. And then now you have to align it to your calendar. And that's the next step in this process. Looking at your calendar so you can identify where you're going to fit into your life specifically and clearly the identified goals you established within those areas that you're committed to, so it aligns to your calendar. It has to go on the calendar to come alive. Okay, we've identified the categories, we've set our goals, we've aligned our goals to the calendar. Number 4, I would say this is probably as important as the other 3 steps, is share your blueprint with someone that cares for you, to get their feedback, to help you think through it so there's even more clarity around the goals you've established. And then if you feel comfortable, ask them to help support you in that, to help you keep accountable to live this blueprint out. Number 5, step number 5, and this is critical also, you have to put on your calendar a time to review your blueprint. To make this work, you have to be consistent about reviewing your blueprint, going back, seeing how well you're progressing, making sure you're achieving the goals you've established, making sure it aligns to your calendar, and then updating and making changes and adding things if necessary. Those are the 5 steps so that you are investing your specific time in the things that are most important to you with intentionality. Again, number 1, identify those primary areas of investment. Number 2, set the goals. Number 3, align them to your calendar. Number 4, share them with someone that cares for you. And number 5, review your blueprint consistently. Here's the try it out section. Create your own personal blueprint. The steps that I just identified and shared with you, do that. Mark time on your calendar. Go to a place where you can think and sit and reflect. Give yourself at least 2 hours, maybe 3 hours, maybe even 4 hours, and sit down and be intentional about creating your blueprint. That's the try it out section. Here's the quote of the week. It comes from J.R.R. Tolkien and the Fellowship of the Rings. All we have to do is decide what to do with the time that is given us. Hey, thank you so much for listening to the Toddcast, your weekly leadership nudge. I pray that you'll have a clear picture of the blueprint that you want to establish to invest your time in. And I pray that you have the motivation to go do that, create it, and live it out. Have a great week. Thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.